Welcome back to Mosaic. I'm Rabbi Eric Weiss in the middle of a wonderful conversation with Danny Grossman, the CEO of the Jewish Community Federation here in San Francisco, Marin, and Sonoma counties and the peninsula. Welcome back, Danny.
Thank you.
We were talking about some of the basic understandings of how the Federation functions, and I thought maybe we could sort of, if we thought of the Federation as a house, there are lots of different ways you can come through the doors. So one way is somebody can donate money to the Federation that essentially then gets redistributed to agencies in need to provide services to people in need. Another one is that if somebody has the economic blessings to set up a fund, that they can actually come to the Federation with their economic blessing and set up a fund at the Federation and receive philanthropic services back. And then also people can come in with different ideas to particularly execute to the service of the community. And then also I know the Federation brings services back into the community in terms of volunteer work, attorneys, accountants, strategic planners that then can come into an agency and help an organizational structure function better. Anything else?
No, it's very well said. You know, I will say that when one's vision is to ensure a flourishing Jewish community, that suggests there's a lot of things that we might do. Within that, we try and focus on the particular and most acute and most important needs of the community. You discussed at the very front end the idea of giving to Federation. We think of that, if one wants to invest in a flourishing Jewish community, that's like a mutual fund. And you don't pick stocks. You don't say, well, I'll give it to this or that agency. Let me give it to the fund, and then the fund will ensure that those dollars will go to the most important needs of the community. That's how we think about that. And I'll only add that when it comes to the philanthropic engagement, I would say that one doesn't have to have extraordinary means to be part of our philanthropic services side. One could open a donor-advised fund with just a few $1,000s and take advantage of the services that we provide, the tax opportunities, but also the Jewish philanthropic education, which is important.
So how does an organization that has philanthropic capacity and other capacities to help make its decisions about what the world might think of as priorities or strategic directions or a way of articulating its vision?
So that's a very important question. The first, of course, is based on data. So we as a federation routinely conduct a community study, a demographic study. We're about to embark on the next one for our community after, I think it's been about 12 years. And we have a breakthrough new approach to that study. But it starts with that data. In other words, who are we? What do we need? Where are we? How are we identifying? From there, then we gather people from the community to say, look, let's think about where the needs are most acute. And those are not easy decisions. Obviously, in the three realms of work, three fundamental realms of work that we operate, engaging and educating the Jewish community, caring for the vulnerable, and ensuring a just and civil society in Israel, there are acute priorities across all of those areas. But it's only as a collective that we think we can get to the best decisions.
So it's a big question, but for anybody that comes into a self-reflective capacity and thinks about, well, who am I in the world? And then what's my place in the world? There's always that level at which one thinks about one's own self, one's own community, and then responsibility to the broader community. And we live in a community where being Jewish involves people in your family who are not Jewish, and being Jewish involves a tremendous amount of effort toward the community that isn't Jewish, and lots of different levels. So how do we have that conversation among ourselves?
I'm glad you asked that question. You know, I told you part of our vision, which is to ensure a flourishing Jewish community. The back end of that is to be a force for good in the world. And when we say the world, we don't mean the Jewish world. We mean the world. So there's a few elements to what you raised. The first is to be inclusive of people who identify as Jewish, whether there's a strict law about who is and who isn't or not. we want to be inclusive. My mother was not Jewish and never converted, and was not really included in this community, and as a consequence sort of stayed in the background. And I hope that others don't feel that. The other part of your question then relates to how we as Jews engage in the world beyond us, and that's critically important, because this is not just about ensuring our own welfare, it's about force for good in the world. So we have those conversations about where those priorities are, and that relates directly to our work in philanthropic education.
You know, we're going to take a break in just a moment, but part of what you're saying, I think, comes down to just a really honest, transparent, basic reality, which is that whatever any of us build, it always starts with a single relationship, and how we multiply relational issues so that everybody does feel that they matter, and that that's what drives the broader vision, rather than some vision that forces individually people to comply with something they actually don't agree with. So we're going to come back in just a moment here on Mosaic. Please join us.